Hi, welcome back to the Jesmond Joggers podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Heide, and today we're diving into something really special. This is how running intersects with identity, community, and pride. So we're joined by Hannah Marshall and Ryan Mills, who are part of the LGBTQ plus community and have incredible stories to share about representation and putting one foot in front of the other. Hannah, Ryan, welcome to the Jesmond Joggers podcast. How are you
Hey.
both?
Hello, thanks for having us. Yeah, really good, thanks.
Yeah, good. Looking
So,
forward.
to kickstart, can you tell us how you both got into running and, yeah, just shed some light on that?
You go, Ryan. I'll let you go first because
But I
it'll
feel like
encourage me to keep my answers shorter.
we need some kind of like hand signals. So I started during the pandemic, so I'm a pandemic runner, baby. In order to just like get outside and do something because obviously we're quite stuck inside, just playing lots of board games and watching film, which is not a bad thing. But needed some fresh air after some time. So I started during the pandemic just with short runs, and then I I did not like it at first, but one of my friends convinced me to just try 5Ks, and then slowly got into it from there.
Nice. Um, so my background was more like I played football for a very long time, and so I actually hated running because running was like a punishment. You know, like if you weren't fit enough in pre-season, or if you, yeah, I guess like playing football in a different era. So a lot of running punishments and things like that. So we all hated running, and then I think probably I couldn't really put my finger on like the year, but um, running kind of came to me through guess like poor mental health, which I think is a common experience. And so initially maybe just probably trying to run away from stuff, and potentially even like a negative thing for myself. A bit of almost like I know this is like a fun, uplifting podcast about running, but it does come full circle. Don't worry. But yeah, almost like a bit of a punishment or just something to like run away. And I used to like just run out the door and run as far as I could and then run back. Like I didn't have Strava or a Garmin or anything like that. So that was maybe like 2017. Um, and but then obviously, full circle, I just find it gives me like the most ultimate kind of headspace, like, and at that time running was very isolating for me. Like I went on my own. I would never have ran with anyone else. And yeah, I had some like different bits and bobs of like pure mental health, um and then 2019 I joined Jesmond Joggers. I'd just done a half Ironman, and I think I was like, I've kind of done everything I can do on my own, and I really want to try and make sport a social thing for me again. And so I joined Joggers in 2019, and then like obviously running isn't that for me now, and it's very much something that I speak to like the likes of Jane and Ellie about things like this, where it's like for me like running is a social thing now. Like try and do something every day that gets you moving, gets you outside, and gets you being social. And I think running in your day can always be that thing. And I'm very much more like, I don't really care how fast I am. I don't care like how long I go. I just like to be outside. I'm a bit like a golden retriever. Um, so yeah, like it kind of came to me in a bit of a weird way, but then it sort of ticked a bit of a box for me to, I guess, manage some stuff.
Amazing. Which half Ironman did you do? I never knew that.
The Yorkshireman. I'd never ever done a triathlon
Oh,
before. I'd
wow.
barely rode a bike, so it was in it was in Ripon. I just wanted to do something a bit daft, really. It was in a strange way. It was quite a healing thing for me to do, which seems a bit back to front, but it kind of helped me just I don't know, like sort some things out and have a focus and get myself a bit better for myself. And yeah, so it was just a good day out. I wasn't bothered. I just wanted to complete it. I wasn't a competitive triathlete. I just sort of got round and I didn't have a tri suit. I just kind of got changed between everything and had about a 20-minute transition just so I could have a sandwich and that. Like, it was very leisurely.
Amazing. And I guess the next question is, how's running played a role in both of your personal identity journeys?
I would say it's helped me a lot with my self-confidence, because growing up, I wasn't great at sports. Like, I did play football and baseball, back in America when I was younger, but I wasn't really great at them. But I feel like, running, you're just competing with yourself, really. So, it's helped me with my self-confidence as I've, joined JJ's from a different running club, and it's taught me how to run better. And um, from that, I had done my first marathon last year, and then I've done a few halves. So I was like building up to up to the full marathon, once I had enough confidence to do so. So I think that's where I'm at right now with running.
I think for me, it's like, so like when I played football again, it was like very different, like sort of culturally in terms of that environment compared to running. And like running is very, like within our running club, we are competitive. There's some fantastic runners, but like Ryan says, it's not competitive, like sort of within the club. And it's like, I look at someone like, for example, Laura Chapman, like absolutely smashing Boston Marathon, and there's no part of me that is like resentful or like jealous of anyone. It's like you look at that and you just feel so inspired. And like I think being in Jesmond Joggers, it's like very different to any sports spaces I've been in before, where there's like no jealousy, there's no like toxic competitiveness, there's no one's gonna like say to you like after a club night, oh, actually you didn't run very well tonight, so you won't be running this weekend. And like, whereas football and that kind of competitive space was like a bit different. So for me, being part of a running club, again, like Ryan says, help a lot more with confidence. And like, obviously I've thought a lot about my identity and journey, like before doing this podcast, just kind of on reflection. And like when I joined in 2019, like I wasn't out to people in the club. Like it wasn't, it was probably something that I was still quite like insecure about. And you're always like, we'll get onto this, I assume, but like, you always worry what the reaction of others is going to be. And especially coming from like a women's football space, like a lot of my friends were queer, and it was quite inclusive in that sense, but it was very strange environment. Like everybody had girlfriends, but nobody was like out, and it was this divide between the straights and the gays. It was like very toxic, especially for like a young person, you're trying to navigate your identity. And then like COVID, I think, had a massive impact on all of us. And I think obviously we didn't meet very much, the club, through COVID, and was almost like had this space away with myself to be like, it's just so exhausting, like living, I don't know, like the only person I'm stopping from being happy and being free is myself. And so I think when I came back to JJ's after the pandemic, I felt like a different version of myself. And like, I felt like I could be myself more. And yeah, like I think JJ's is just this really super inclusive space, and everybody's so different. Myself and Ryan and others, we would still be the minority within that space, but like I feel like people, I just feel like we can definitely be ourselves. And I think one thing I would note as well is, until you do feel free in your identity, like, and safe and secure, like you can't possibly sort of be who you need to be. You can't like run your best races or feel your best, or like, I don't know, like it just has this enormous impact on you. And sorry, I think I've like probably rambled on about a few of the questions there, but I think I hadn't really thought about that until this podcast, and actually, like, yeah, on reflection, like when I first came to joggers, like I wasn't like out. I know some people might think I don't understand what you mean, but to me, like, it's a very different feeling.
Interesting. There's probably quite a tough question to answer, but I think for someone, I guess for someone who's not gay, is why did you always, or why did you have reservations about feeling or being out and open, etc.? And what were the, I guess, worries and anxieties about it?
I think, like, you know, and again, this is something I think more and more about the older I get, is like, I think for one, people think that, especially people, we've had a conversation about this, Andrew, where yourself, you don't understand what that's like, because also you're not homophobic. So you don't understand how people can be. And like, like myself and my partner a couple of weeks ago, like we were in Morrison's and someone came up to us and like was being homophobic, like whilst we were getting our trolley. And it's like, and so it's like it's like things like that are like obvious stuff. And like through my life, with previous partners, maybe it's in bars or nightclubs, or like you do face things like that. But also it's like a lot of stuff is so deep rooted within yourself. From like, I use the example of like when you're at school, if somebody did something bad or weak or whatever, it was like, oh, that's gay, or that's like, then all of these, like the first time I ever knew what a lesbian was, before I even knew what it was, like it was somebody getting bullied at school because their mum was. And it's like all of these things, even when you're a child, like you don't really, when you're probably 7, you don't experience that and go, oh, that was homophobic. But it's like so deep within your brain that then all of these things, and like again, when I was like 18, probably trying to explore my identity, like I had friends that had been kicked out of their homes for being gay, like, and and again, the hangover from all of the narrative in the 80s, Section 28, like the fear around HIV and AIDS, like people think that that's gone away, but like it's so deep rooted within our community that like, you know, it's quite hard to explain. And I didn't really, I think JJ's for me was like one of the first like new spaces I went to. Like I wouldn't have been out in a job. Like I wouldn't have, when I first started working within education, it was very much like, oh, you didn't tell people that you were gay because, again, a bit of a hangover from Section 28. And like, so I think when you go into a new space, it's so hard to put your finger on, but it's like, you just don't know what the reaction's going to be like, because people assume that everybody is straight. That's kind of like the mainstream view. So it's like you meet a new person, or somebody has a child, and it's like, oh, this child is just, it's a boy. So one day this boy is going to get married and have children with a woman. Like it's culture and society is just so heteronormative that like being outside of that box, like it's so tangled up in so many different things that it's very difficult to explain in a podcast. But I hope I've kind of like, but every like growing up, like it in my mind, really deep rooted, was like being gay was this terrible thing that you just absolutely shouldn't be, and it wasn't normal, and it was, you were choosing this lifestyle, which then meant that you had this life that you weren't going to have everything that everyone else had, and you're always going to be on the fringes of normal society. So then to come to like a running club where the vast majority of people are sort of predominantly white, straight, like cisgender people, it's like it's very difficult to explain. And it's not because people were like openly exclusionary or offensive or anything, because in loads of ways JJ's is just the most wonderful welcoming space, but it's like something deep within yourself that you can't really put a finger on. I don't know if Ryan, you can like sort of explain that a bit better, or reflect on your own experience, or
I can do my best. What I think is like you kind of carry that stuff with you throughout life, because those things can always repeat.
Yeah.
As you're saying, like there are people who are still homophobic, transphobic, all of that, and like working in primary school, like I've heard like children say like, oh, like that's gay. And it's really tricky to explain to them sometimes why that's not always, it's just not the right thing to say for that situation. Um, but then that leads into, I mean, it could lead into a conversation as to the LGBTQ plus community. And it's not always like the ideal time to have that kind of conversation, especially with like a year three. But I feel like I didn't realize like my identity. I identify as a gay male, but I didn't know that I identified as a gay male until I was in my American uni. So even in like my primary school, I didn't. I just went like day to day life, like thinking that I was straight, but I still had bullies, and that follows you throughout life.
Yeah.
So in different situations from day to day, like my partner and I have also heard some things as we walked past like someone's flat, just trying to get to the metro, minding our own business. So it's tricky every now and then. Always, not always the nicest of situations, but having that safe space within JJ's is really nice, to know that you're not going to be judged.
Yeah. I think like what Ryan said there is very interesting as well, because like, yeah, in terms of identity, like I didn't know that I was gay or lesbian or queer or anything like that. Like, but I knew that I was different. And like, sort of the same as Ryan, like I was like bullied so bad at primary school. And in secondary school, I was kind of saved a bit because I was sporty, and then humor becomes a big part of your personality. And because it's like a massive self-defense, and it's like, again, like, and we'll probably talk on this as well, but like I had short hair when I was like 10, so I looked like a boy. So I was constantly being like thrown out of boys' toilets and bathrooms, and being told like I couldn't be in the girls' races or the girls' teams by other schools because it was like, well, that's a boy. And so like all of this stuff like really stays with you, where like you just know that you're different. So then like, you go to a new space, and that feeling is always there of like, oh, like, will people see me? Will people exclude me? Like, yeah, I think again, it's like something I think about as I get older, to maybe undo some of that stuff. And on balance, I hope we'll represent this as well within the podcast. Is like, within our community, we talk a lot about the fight and the struggle and the identity and being bullied and all this, but actually like being a lesbian is like the best thing I am. Like, I'm so proud of that part of my life. And again, we'll touch on this, like there's so much joy and freedom and expression and fun within our community, and that's like also really important to get across in this podcast. Like, it can't just be like, oh, like being queer is this like deeply saddening thing. It's like, yeah, when you let it in, it's the best thing ever.
Agreed.
That's really interesting. I think one question I've got on that is, I'm not saying that the bullying's right or anything. Do you think, I don't know, modern day, do you think schools should have done more when you were younger to educate a lot earlier? Because when I'm looking back, a lot of the things that you said, Hannah, is like, I remember like another girl called Hannah came out as a lesbian, maybe like 11, 12. And it was almost like, probably lucky social media wasn't as prominent then as it is now, because it was like breaking news and no one really knew what it meant. But I guess because it spread like wildfire, it was, I guess the girl would have felt very different, because it
Right.
wasn't like, oh, if this person has a girlfriend at that age, like that was all like normal, not really like widespread gossip. Do you think schools have more of a duty to educate children on that? Because to be honest, like if I look back, I don't think the topic has like ever been approached.
But you have to remember, like within this is, I talk about Section 28, like it was still illegal to discuss like anything in relation to LGBT, like stories or representation until like 2000, or like it was I don't want to get that wrong, but like I know it definitely was until I was maybe at some point in secondary school. So again, like teachers, it was like illegal for them to mention anything about that, you know? And so,
Really, I didn't know that either.
so
That's
again,
that's
and
how naive I am on the
so
topic.
yeah, and that's a hangover from like Margaret Thatcher. And so again, you think about Ryan as a primary school teacher, like how can we educate young people? Because you would be sacked or you'd go to jail. Like that was the thing. And we have a danger of going back there now where people say like, oh, we shouldn't teach children about LGBT issues and about gender expression and identity. And what I always say about that is like, okay, well, I went to school and every story was about straight people.
Mm.
Every piece of history was about straight people, and I turned out gay. So like, you can't make people be something, but what you can do is make them feel deeply uncomfortable and hate themselves and feel different. And so, yes, I think schools have a massive part to play. And you speak about that girl's experience in your school, but again, that has a ripple effect on everybody else. So, like the people
Mhm.
who weren't out and gay, like, you know, statistically speaking, there will have been other people in your year and in your school that would have been queer, and they will remember that somewhere within their core memory to be like, oh, well, actually, do you remember that experience that girl had? And in an ironic way, a lot of the people that probably bully people like that at school are like, probably some of them have like turned out to be gay. Like, you know, I think some of the most homophobic people that I played football with turned out to have girlfriends years later. Like, you know, so of course schools have a massive part to play, but I think we have a danger of kind of going backwards within law, society, and government. Like currently, like you know, our community is massively under threat at the moment.
Mhm. Yeah, just to add to that, so I've been working on trying to get like someone into our primary school to talk about um like what it means to be gay, like whether you're a man, woman, non-binary, they, them, um, because I think it's really important for kids to understand what that means and why they shouldn't be bullying other people just because of who those people are or how they identify. Um, I think if I learned about that more when I was in my primary school, I think I would have had a different outlook, and I don't know that I would have thought more about myself specifically, but I would have thought more about people around me. And oh, there are people who are different than me for different reasons. Um, as far as Hannah's saying, I was gonna just mention later, but like not to get overly political, but because back in America, Trump is doing everything that he can now to just get like all of his policies that he's got coming in to exclude trans people and the LGBTQ community almost entirely. I think that's important to learn about and why it was fought for in the beginning back at Stonewall. So it's massively important. And you can start with those storybooks about Stonewall and the riots. Like you don't have to be in like secondary school to learn about this kind of stuff. So I think introducing it slowly in primary school throughout those kind of stories, like Harvey Milk and the rainbow flag, how that was created, why it was created. Um, that's what I've done previously to um, help, maybe not help, but like um, to teach children in primary schools. Like in the first school that I worked in, like I organized an assembly during the LGBTQ History Month because I thought that was pretty important for the kids to learn about. So we had a school-wide assembly about that, and they learned about what the different colors of the rainbow flag mean because they do mean something. Like each color means something different. So I think it's really important. And if I did learn about that more in my primary school, I think it would be really beneficial.
It's really interesting. Do you think that those things that you put on, events would put on, if you didn't work at the school?
Um, so last year in my current primary school, will not disclose, but um, I I was waiting to see if they did anything like specifically for like diversity, equality, which they do. Don't get me wrong, like they do celebrate and have those types of assemblies, events, etc., but not specifically for people who identify as LGBTQ plus. So this year, I was trying to have someone come in and do some workshops with the kids and so on and so forth. So I would like to think that something like that would still happen, but I'm not entirely sure if it would or not.
Interesting.
I think that again is like an interesting thing where sometimes it's like we have to be the voice for everyone, and it's like, like I can advocate for, I don't know, like I can advocate for the rights of like refugees, but I don't know what it's like to be a refugee. Like I can advocate for trans rights, but it's like we're still a minority within that, and I find like our community has to do a lot of that education and that advocacy stuff ourselves, and it's like sometimes it's very empowering, and it's obviously important to us, and we can give context to certain situations, but it's also like incredibly exhausting to be the person who's like trying to like do the right thing almost, or like, and yeah, it can, that can be quite like exhausting. Like, and I guess like, we'll probably come onto this, but like Ryan doing that work in the school and like within the running club, like this year, Ryan, myself, Jack, Martha, we've kind of put together some Pride events, which like we've never really done as a club before. Like I know people have gone to the Pride 5K and things like that, but I think like particularly within the current social political context, I think it's been really important for us to try and organize some Pride events. And part of that, Andrew, we talked about Section 28, and you didn't know about that, and it's like hopefully through these events, like we can provide a space and ensure that we're really inclusive and supportive of, and we stand with that community, but also about educating some of our members and to maybe change some of that narrative, or like, because everybody has like a ripple effect. So if you have a change in opinion and about language or about history or about certain things, then you spread that through your circle or with your children or with your friends, and like that's, we can't fight the fight on our own type thing. So I don't know if you want to mention some of the events, Ryan, or
Go for it.
Yeah, so I've got my notes here. So on the 2nd of June, so it starts in June, but it is, so like Pride is like celebrated across the UK from like June until August, but it's primarily in June. Newcastle's Pride is mid-July, but at the start of June for JJ's, we've got the Pride themed run and talk, which I'll probably try and take part in with Martha as well. The 12th of June, we have the book club meeting. This one is for Can Everyone Please Calm Down by Mae Martin. And I might be able to tell us a bit about that one. I've actually not read it yet, but I've previously read that one.
it's a very, very good book, and it's a lot of the sort of like context behind it is around why does it matter? Why does any of it, how someone expresses themselves, how somebody chooses to be a woman or a man, or their sexuality. And it also is like really cool because it talks about history. So a lot of the narrative around, like, for example, people would say, oh, well, anyone can identify as whatever they want nowadays, and soon people identify as like a toaster or whatever, and it's like just horribly untrue, and like as if it's this new phenomena. And actually the book talks about historically within lots of other cultures, countries, like non-binary people, transgender people, like have always existed. And within nature, people say, it's not natural, it's not normal. Like animals don't care, like they'll just sleep with whatever. And within nature, we have animals that can change sex and gender, and some animals choose to not have any mates. Again, it just really breaks down a lot of because I think as humans we try to have everything in boxes, and a lot of that comes again intersectionally from colonialism and patriarchy and Christianity. We've imposed these rules about gender and life that the book's just really, really. And Mae Martin is a non-binary comedian, and their views on everything it's really funny and it's really easy to read. And yeah, if you want to have some good but also quite humorous arguments about, or not arguments, but points about gender and sexuality, it's just a great place to start.
Yeah, so that's the 12th of June for the book club, and then the 17th of June is the Pride Yoga, led by Hannah, with cheesy tunes and positive vibes. Love that. And then the 21st of June is the Parkrun meetup. So Pride themed, but since Hammore is canceled, location to be determined on that one. Front runners. So the pub quiz with the Newcastle front runners at the Lost Wanderer is the 26th of June, and then if people are so inclined to have a night out that weekend, would be the 28th ish, maybe around the Pink Triangle, which is where the gay clubs and bars are in Newcastle, and then of course in
Ryan's
July.
We lost Ryan.
Ryan's left.
Sorry,
Everyone was waiting for the big night out on the 28th.
Oh,
He's gone on it already.
I don't know why it's. Oh no!
I don't know whether it's just cut out there.
Hold on. Oh no! I don't know why it's lost connection. Can you guys hear or see me at all? Oh,
We can crop this bit out.
I was gonna say, do you
stand by.
Oh, it's gone.
Whilst we wait for Ryan to come back, should we crack on? Should we continue with some of the questions?
Yeah. We've
I
momentarily
think
lost
we can
Ryan.
back in. I guess I think you've already touched on it, that you feel included. I think in running, have there been any sort of experiences at races in terms of inclusion, and do you think there's anything race organisers or clubs or fellow runners can do to be more welcoming?
I think okay, what do I think? So I think obviously because there was some questions around feeling included and not feeling included, and I think I want to try and get this across in an articulate way. So there's a bit of a movement at the moment around trans people's involvement in sport, and obviously running has a part to play in that. So we've seen this week that the Supreme Court has said that we will people will be a female is determined by biological sex, and I a while ago joined this Facebook group. Simon actually sort of said it would be really good. It was really interesting. It was about a lot of running stories and memorabilia, and I'm a bit of a nerd about stuff like that. I love reading and about people's training and things like that. And it was a really cool page to be a part of. And then slowly it started becoming quite transphobic, and lots of people posting really hateful posts about trans women participating in Parkrun. And I was like, it just sort of gradually became more and more toxic that way. And, it's really, really awful to hear people's views about stuff like that. So what I would say in terms of from an inclusion point of view, in terms of what I currently feel about that issue is as I mentioned earlier, when I was younger, I was very like masculine presenting. Like I had short hair, like I thought I looked like Pink, but I just looked like my brother. And like, so I was like, people would question whether I was a boy or a girl, and I would be excluded from those spaces. And there is a group of exclusionary radical feminists that believe that trans women should be excluded from women's spaces, which could be, for example, the women's category of Parkrun. Now, on a very, very basic level, like this idea of determining what being a woman is exactly the same oppression that stopped women from taking part in the marathon before the 80s. So like, if the only way in which you can show that you're a woman is by like, without being too crude on the podcast, is dropping your pants, like we live in a fascist society. Like that is obviously my views, but like in terms of being a feminist or standing up for LGBT rights or standing up for like anti-racism, like we're not free until we're all free. So for me, like on a very basic level, trans women are women. And we're talking about like 0.5% of the population. And there's this massive noise and massive like sort of like, you know, the government, the law, putting all this time and energy and effort into like excluding trans people from spaces. And like, whilst at the time everyone's getting poorer, you know, we've not stopped like violence against women. You know, like we don't live in a world where being a woman is safe. And the reason women aren't safe has got nothing to do with trans women. And so within sport is a reflection of society. So within sport, like we have an opportunity as a club, as a sport, to include trans people, because trans people are like huge, great risk of poor mental health, huge risk of suicide. They're like some of the most hated and debated people in society. And then we want to stop them from being able to self-identify at Parkrun. Like, so for me, it's like, I would say at a very top level of sport, when we're talking about the Olympics, more research needs to be done. However, you've been able to compete in the Olympics as a transgender woman for the last 20 years. How many transgender women have won medals? None. How many transgender women have competed in the Olympics? One. So like, you know, people make this noise about like, well, men will just transition to win women's sport. And like, it's just not happening. And like, so for me, when we talk about inclusion at races and within running clubs, like that is our biggest issue at the moment in our community. Like this exclusion of trans people, where like you have to be very, very careful with stuff like that, especially within a grassroots level, because like if I shaved all my hair off and I turned up, like, you know, do people then think I'm a man? And how do I prove that I'm not? Like, do you know what I mean? Like it's a very slippery slope, and like intersex people are as common as red-haired people. So people that are born with even biological sex is not a simple thing. So, you know, and testosterone levels, muscle level, like, you know, within sport, we have genetic freaks, right? People that are just predisposed to have better VO2 max, bigger feet, whatever it might be, like, and especially within a grassroots level, which we all compete in, you know, even our best runners, we're still participation athletes. Like, I just think we just shouldn't be excluding like a very vulnerable part of our society. And again, like that does impact on everyone else, because in some ways it's now easier for men to enter women's spaces because you would just say you were a trans man, but biologically you're a woman, because trans men look like cisgender men, you know? So it's just such a confusing and a very, very backward step, you know? I would identify as a woman who doesn't really feel aligned to femininity, or like, you know, like I say, we fought so much to be able to like run marathons, to have bank accounts, to wear trousers, like to not be like, you know, to have women's rights. And actually like this cannot be celebrated as a victory for women's rights. Like it's a huge step back. Trying to determine what it means to be a woman that's my kind of piece on that.
Ryan, do you have anything to add?
So I unfortunately lost you guys and at the beginning of that, but it sounded like kind of covered that really well. I don't know that I could add much more to that, if I'm being honest. But yeah, it was a great answer, to be fair.
I think on that, I guess, thought, Hannah, is what do you think parkrun organisers or race organisers should do then?
I mean, I think for me, like being able to self-identify is a really important thing because, okay, for parkrun, you might have people that are like escaping domestic abuse. You know, people are registered within the parkrun as like the abominable snowman. Like parkrun, you should be able to go and say you are whoever you want to be because it is the reason of parkrun. Like I personally think, like I've got a background in sport development. Parkrun is the single greatest thing for mass participation of sport in this country that has ever happened in the world. Do you know what I mean? So like the idea behind it is to get people out of the house, to get people, you know, on a Saturday morning meeting up with people. Like I know from my experience of pure mental health, like that was so transformative for me. And the idea of like stopping people from being able to be who they need to be. And so like, and people would argue, well, they can just have their own category. And it's like, well, but why does it matter? Like for me personally, like even I'm not fast anymore, but like, you know, I've come second and third in a women's category of a parkrun before. And if I was beaten by a trans woman, even if, you know, some of the narrative is like they looked male, I would just go home and not think second about it. Like I don't care. Like it's not designed, you know, it is competitive in nature to some people and it gets people absolutely gets people to be faster and, you know, aim for PBs. And it's, you know, yeah, of course it's great when you come home with like, oh, I was fastest woman today. But like, that is not how it was designed to be. And like, so parkrun, like being able to self-identify and a really important part of like coming out. So like, whether that's as a queer person, as a lesbian, as a trans person or a non-binary person, social transition is like the most important part in the sense of like the wait list to access gender affirming care in the NHS is like you're probably going to wait like 8 years before you can even see someone to say, I think I have gender dysphoria or I think I'm born in the wrong body, like 8 years. And so social transition gives people the space to be who they need to be before they can medically or whatever society feels that people need to do around their gender. So like people have this idea that like our fastest male runner one day is just going to go, actually, I'm a woman now and like win the Olympics. And like, that's just not how it works. So like parkrun gives people a space to explore their identity in a space that is really affirming. And like, so I can reflect on that, like within my football space, I had a space where I could explore my sexuality before I had to like come out to the world. And like, that's so important, like that social transition. And so parkrun, like for me, self-identify, like you shouldn't have to give identification. Like, and again, women who are trying to escape domestic abuse or people who have, you know, I don't know, have run away from something, like you shouldn't be able to Google where they are on parkrun. Like, and obviously people might say, well, you just don't register, don't get a barcode or whatever. Like, but why? Like, why should we take this amazing opportunity away from people? And like within races, again, like I think there should be non-binary categories, but I think people should be able to identify on the basis of gender. Because like I said before, there was a massive thing a couple of years ago about a trans woman who came 20,060th, for example, in the London Marathon. And there was this big stink about how they'd taken away this opportunity from biological women. And it's like, but you would have just come 20,060th. Like,
Yeah,
why does it matter? You know? And so like, and for that
that
person,
one place.
yeah, like one kid was like, they've robbed like a woman of that. What? Like, because it doesn't matter. Like, it really, really doesn't matter. Because nobody could give an example of somebody who is transitioning just to win a running race. Like, it's just not the case. And like, even if someone's transitioned and they have won a women's category, it's like, again, for me, it doesn't matter because I see, you know, trans women are women. you know, it's like that simple to me.
Yeah, I think I agree. I mean, I'm not as educated on the topic as yourself. I think it gets blurry. I was reading something about US colleges and swimmers. I think it gets blurry, like right at the top. But you're talking
Yeah.
probably if
I'm
you
saying, like,
remove
within
the
sport. I'm within contact sport, like,
yeah
like there has to be, but again, that then links back
yeah
to this massive noise around like puberty blockers. We've banned puberty blockers, and part of people's argument about why trans women shouldn't be able to participate in sport is because they've gone through male puberty. Well, we've just stopped people from being able to access care that stops them from going to through puberty. So, like, do you know what I mean? It's like the whole thing is just, it becomes very complicated. And I would always say, like, I don't know what all the answers are on all of the scenarios, but I think we should always come at it from compassion. And if you can think of it like, oh, if that was my child or my best friend or me, like, people are just trying to exist. Like, people
yeah
aren't trying to take anything away from
yeah
anyone
yeah
else.
yeah. I think definitely. I think certainly a park run as well is like
It's a
it
parkrun.
isn't. It's not really a race.
And,
Like for
and we
sure, for
call
sure, I've done a few hard efforts and I've come first at a few of them, but I've never like you forget that by 10 o'clock.
yeah.
You're like,
And
oh
we
yeah,
can
that's it,
probably
done.
all reflect on like parkrun playing a massive part in our running journey, in our mental health, in our, you don't even need to make plans on a Saturday. You just need to go to a parkrun where you
Yeah,
know a few people are going, and like there you go, there's your day sorted. You've gone out for coffee and brunch, and like it's this beautiful thing, and like yeah, we should just
Hmm.
all be allowed to go.
next question is, what does running mean to you both now?
Go on, Ryan.
Sorry, I'm trying to catch up because I disconnected there. I mean, right. So to me, running just means that I can take part in a sport that I'm passionate about whenever I have the time to do it. And there's not a lot of structure if you're not going to a club. Like you can either go to a club, you can go out on your own, you can go to Parkrun, like you guys are saying. But it's to me, it's about like the freedom of having that choice of am I going to go out on a run today to help my mental well-being, or am I going to go for like a short walk or something? So it's like to me, it's like the freedom of that non-structure and just taking care of my mental well-being.
Yeah, I think mine would be the same. I mean, I've been injured like probably since October now, but but like for me, running is like my mind's quite busy all the time, like, and I've always got like loads of thoughts running around my head, and like that feeling of just like being quite free, like, and just able to celebrate my body, being able to do cool stuff like running. So like I very much prefer trail running because I like to be somewhere like really beautiful, like feel like I've escaped um and just like with nature. But then yeah, that feeling of like moving through running, like just it's just unbelievable. Like I think I like the gym, I like swimming, I like walking and hiking, and like all of those things serve me in so many ways. And yoga, like movement is really important to me, but like running is just, it's like the ultimate like headspace celebration of what your body can do. And also like through joggers, I've found like community as well within running. And so it also means to me like friendships. It's probably how I socialize with people from changes as well, obviously. And like, yeah, just like freedom of movement and just enjoying being alive.
Do you have any favorite memories of running that you'd like to share?
Uh, yeah, well, mine would be like, yeah, very much linked to that. Like, I used to be a bit faster, and and I've had some like quite good PBs and races and stuff. But like for me, like my most special memories in running will be like when there was a group of us, like Sophie, Jane, and Esme. Like we did the espresso round in the Lake District. Um, together and like see that feeling of just like being out in the mountains, running with your friends, like those kind of memories to me, like that feeling of being in the mountains, like just so almost like weightless and like just yeah, just so free. Like they're the most special memories that I have, and like just running in scenic places and like feeling good. Like if my body feels good, then like my mind feels good. So I don't really have like my I used to be quite focused on races and times and being better, but actually now for me it's all about that social aspect, that being able to just just move and enjoy running.
Yeah. I think now my answer's gonna feel a bit more selfish. Because I was just gonna say, because I did build up to the full marathon that I did last year, so I was just quite proud of myself for completing a marathon in general. Because I never ever pictured myself running a marathon, um, as well as just halves leading up to that. So I wasn't worried about the time. I just wanted to finish it. And I thought the Edinburgh Marathon was quite good last year. Just over 4 hours, but like I said, I was happy with that because I finished. And I was yeah. I feel like it's really helped my running journey as a whole. Like think about what's next or what I could possibly do next, if I want to do another one.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. I think when you first start out running, the thought of a marathon's pretty revolting at the
Quite
best of time,
daunting.
and it's daunting. And then even in training, when you build up, you still leave yourself with like, you might have run 20 miles, you might have done 22, but you still leave yourself with quite a bit more to run in a marathon.
Mhm.
And Edinburgh's a great city to do that in.
I definitely think as well, like, like throughout your running journey, you go on different bits, don't you? So, like, that's my experience now. Partly because of that is because I've been so chronically injured that, like, I just enjoy being out. But I think definitely for like people setting out in running, like, I think having those events in the calendar, like Ryan says, like, in terms of advice to people taking up running, like, they're really big motivators and also give you like a very visual and experiential like example of your progress. And like I think that is like such a motivating tool, and like especially when you just want to complete a distance, like like the time is quite secondary, and you can almost have like A, B and C goals within that. So like the A goal is to get on the start line, the B goal is to finish, and then like the C goal is like, if I'm having a really good day, like I am capable of this. And so like I think like definitely events can be just such a great tool to keep you motivated as well, keep you turning up for yourself and keep you training. Because otherwise, you just think, oh wait, I don't need to do that. But certainly in marathon training, like you can't not do those runs. Like you just got to do them.
Yeah, definitely. I think milestones are good, and then off the back of them as well, you've almost you've like earned freedom of choice. Like your marathon fitness, you won't lose your marathon. You lose probably the time that you could achieve if you stop running, but you probably got your fitness levels to a point now where for like even a few years you can pretty much choose whatever you want to do. And you might go away for a holiday and think, oh, there's this amazing mountain nearby. I'm just gonna go walk up it and jog back, and you can just do it like that.
Mhm.
I think it's like really good to have those. And I think it's the same with half marathon as well. If you can run a half marathon, I think you can pretty much do whatever you want when you want, and it's a lot less daunting. You get once you unlock that, you're then able to probably unlock a lot more happiness, where it might not be milestone based, but you can just go and seek things out
Yeah,
quite easily without needing to build up to it or without worrying about it. You've kind of already clocked that.
yeah.
Um, where am I up to on my list of never ending questions? Think what advice would you give to LGBTQ plus runners who are just starting out?
Um, I think the only thing I could think of for that one, is to not like try not to think about like other people too much, because I think that's going to play in your headspace. Because I would like to think that people aren't um, just like watching you and judging you all the time. Like they may like they're not even going to know sometimes that you're part of the community. So like they're not judging you for that. They like looking at your running stuff, but like they're not there to judge you, in my opinion. So I think you can't let that play too much in your head, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I'll just like definitely like community is a big thing. So like in this idea of community, not just like the LGBT community, but like for me, like I ran a lot on my own, like for a number of years. And initially it was nice headspace, but like in order to be like sustainable, for it to be this positive influence and like to help you with your mental well-being and just whatever you've got going on, like I think finding a community, so like finding a club, like, you know, obviously Jesmond Joggers had like a profoundly positive impact on my running, my life, my social circles, you know, my confidence, the yoga, like everything, you know, like we always talk about Jesmond Joggers as being like, you know, it's a running club with all these like super add-on bits. But if you can find a group of people, it doesn't even have to be a running club. Like there's a lot of social movements happening now. Like, you know, just find a group of people that um that you can run with, or that like even just have you back. Do you know what I mean? Like I remember when I first started running, like running's having a bit of a moment now, isn't it? Like everybody's running and everybody's doing high rocks and whatever. But like when I first started like running a bit more seriously, 2017, like loads of my friends were like running, like, oh my God, like I couldn't think of anything worse. And it's like, I don't know, like again, just yes, do it for yourself, stick with it, like, you know, find something that you enjoy. So whether it is like going on the trails, whether it's, you know, going to Parkrun, whether it's joining a club, like find something and just keep turning up. Like you initially, I think it's difficult to stick with it unless you like when I first joined JJ's, like I came 3 times a week every week for like the first 6 months, because it was like I've just got to stick with this. Like I've got to, you know, keep turning up. And I think that's like the biggest thing initially is just like that consistency um and yeah, just be yourself and enjoy it. And yeah, I think like being a beginner is like almost sometimes the best part, because you just fall in love with this thing, becoming obsessed, and like the improvements that you'll make as a beginner are just like astronomical. And so like that part of the journey, like I almost think like, oh, it'd be cool to like start again, because it's just so good. And yeah, I think you get so much back from running, you know, and just make sure you enjoy it and take your time enjoying that bit.
Amazing. Yeah, I think as a non-LGBTQ plus, I would say take the leap, and there's a lot more LGBTQ plus runners in clubs than you realize, and there's a very high percentage. And anyone who doesn't identify in those manners is, this probably sounds really bad, but in the wrong way, in the right way. We don't care, we don't judge. It's very inclusive, it's very welcome, and we treat you for the human that you are, not any label that's attached. I don't know if that sounds wrong or right. That's my personal views of these things. And I've spoken to you at length
Yeah.
about it, and it's like I'm probably too naive. So I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot in this that's like opened my eyes. But for me, it's just very simple. Of like everyone's got their unique traits, and that's that.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah, I think it was
Yeah.
really, really interesting for me to learn. Like I've been a member of Jesmond probably nearing 2 years now, and there's a lot more LGBTQ plus community in the club that I'd ever realised.
Mhm.
And I'd spoken to some of these people at length for significant periods of time.
Yeah, we get everywhere. No, like I think as well, like one thing I'd say as well about like running and also like being yourself and stuff is like I think for a long time I like stood in my own way. Like I was like you say, you almost think that people, like Ryan says, are going to be judging you, or you think that people care, and hopefully the vast majority of people in the nicest way, like they don't care, and actually like you're only just standing in the way of your own happiness and your own freedom, and like just like every single person is just so uniquely gorgeous and wonderful and interesting. And I think like just if we all just were who we want it to be, like, you know, you're not, as long as you're not harming anyone else or taking anything away from anyone else, like, yeah, just be yourself, and don't apologize for any of it.
And then finally, what is next for both of you in running? Or just dreams of anything?
I mean, I just have 2 smaller races coming up. Got the peer-to-peer and then the Bladen race, which is my first time for both, actually. Hopefully I'll get a charity spot for Great North Run this year, but see what happens. Yeah. Nothing bigger coming up at the moment, and then competitions in Parkrun. So that's about it.
Well, I signed up for an ultra last September, and I've been injured ever since. So watch this space. But no, so Amy and I, my partner from who was also a JJ, we signed up for an ultra last September, which is this September. So it's the Five Valleys Ultra in September. So it's like about 35 miles, and I think it's about like 7,500 foot of elevation, which is like my cup of tea, because I'm kind of thinking I wouldn't have to run as much. But yeah, at the moment I've managed to build up to, like, I've been rehabbing and taking my time since October, but I'm up to, like, I can like nearly run for half an hour. So like 35 miles seems a long way off, but we'll just see. You never know. But again, I think that freedom of like, I don't have to run anymore. Like I used to have to run, whereas now it's like I like to run. So if I can't do it because I'm injured, you know, life moves on and I'll do something else, and, you know, I'll go and support Amy and be her biggest cheerleader. But like, I would like to do it. So I'm just being very sensible with recovery. It's still like 5 months away. See what happens. But if I could pull it off, it would be quite a good comeback. But I don't know. I don't know at the moment.
I believe in you. You can do it. 5 months is a long time.
I think so.
5 months is an awful long time to claw back.
And maybe
Especially
try
for
and
an
walk.
ultra, you've got
Yeah.
a lot of you got the gas tank.
Yeah. And it's mostly hiking, and I'm kind of thinking, I
Yeah.
could probably hike like 25 miles and run 10. Like, it's probably doable. But we'll see.
Amazing. And then what we finish the podcast on every time is one piece of advice that you'd give to others.
Oh.
Go on, Ryan. You can go as I think of mine.
Right. One piece of advice. Right. I would say, right, because there's lots of resources in the UK. If you might be struggling with like how you identify or who you identify as, there are those resources to call or contact, because it's such a big thing in the community. So I was going to say, so there's Switchboard, which is a support line in the UK, and then you've got the Trevor Project, and loads of different resources that can help support you. So I would recommend, if you might be struggling, or if you just need someone to talk to, like if you might not have like someone close or just in your club or whatever the situation might be, you can talk to someone from those support lines, and just if you're struggling, I would say try and contact someone. Yeah, that's
I feel like Ryan's given some advice for someone with identity, some support for identity. So mine's going to be some running advice, and I think for me, right? How do I say this I'll struggle to get my words out in a fluent way, but I think like there's so many people that like can't move, like can't run, like can't you know, like don't have the opportunity to. And I think like a lot of us spend a lot of time getting caught up in, I don't know, like not being fast enough or not being able to run far enough, or like, I think for me, it's very much in finding that enjoyment and that contentment with the very, very basic thing of movement. Like for me, that's just so amazing and so brilliant. And I think through my work as well, like I see a lot of people who like overnight life-changing injuries, or like, your life's taken away from you, or like, I see a lot of people who, live in a life circumstance where they couldn't just go to parkrun. And so for me, it's like, as people who can celebrate that movement and like celebrate our bodies and like be social and have that opportunity to do that, like for me, like every time I go for a run, I'm just like, that was amazing, and just, I'm like quite enthusiastic in that sense, but like we should all feel like that. Like, we should just be like, you don't know what's around the corner. Like, you don't know, like, Andrew, yourself, you've had a pretty significant injury in the last year or two. Like, you just don't know. Like, and in those moments when you feel good, like, just enjoy it. Like, just get out there, enjoy every moment of it, because you just never know when, like the day, like I was injured in October, like I just had like the most amazing, beautiful run along the coast, felt fantastic. And then was like, oh, don't feel quite right actually. And like, for me, just everything's about, you know, enjoying the day-to-day process of everything. And just, yeah, like it's just such a privilege to be able to run. So just run, just enjoy it. Like, that's all from me.
That's amazing. Jane might be rolling her eyes if she's listening, because at the minute I just say run for those who can't.
Yeah, but the thing is, isn't it? It's like, like it's a privilege, such a privilege, and we just don't think of it because we get caught up in our own stuff, and that's the way it is, isn't it? So
Yeah, I think that's great advice. Absolutely phenomenal advice. Yeah, so we'll wrap up there. So thank you both for joining and being really obviously open with your stories.
Yeah,
I've learned a lot. There's some things I probably need to go away and research and learn more about and sort of acquaint myself with, especially these laws that I have went through life so blissfully not realizing that they were a thing. But as you say, I think running is a magnificent thing that can help with mental health. I guess cultures embedded in running, and hopefully we can keep moving towards more acceptance and growing the community more. So yeah, I'm really grateful for having this conversation.
yeah, absolutely.
It's probably been the most personal and sensitive out of the ones I've had so far. But yeah, so really, really, really grateful, and I hope we've managed to educate people a little bit further.
Yeah, no, thanks very much for putting it on. Like, really appreciate it. And I just hope, I knew it was going to be long, but I was just thinking, I hope people listen to it, because I know I've been listening to the other ones, have been maybe 20, 30 minutes. So yeah, I just hope that people can manage to sit through the whole thing.
It's two for the price of one, though, isn't it?
Well, exactly, yeah.
It's two for the price of one.
Yeah.
That's fine.
So there will be a message sent out about all of those June events, as I was cut off earlier, but they will be there shortly enough. Yeah. But thank you so much for having us and taking a left turn as far as the running aspect goes.
Yeah.
No problem.